So, this is season 2. You guys wanted it, you now have it, and we're the Unsettled. And if you haven't already guessed, we uncover cases, we try and figure out what really happened on that certain day. And in season 2, we're going to be going into some extreme cases, which many of you will probably find quite graphic, quite horrific in some instances, and may cause a little bit of upsetment. So in season 2, be prepared. It's
disturbing.
yeah, and it's just going to be as hardcore and as graphic as you can ever imagine it to be. And we're going to be delving into a lot more of, I guess, this type of matter. I mean, that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But as I said, we are the Unsettled. Viewer discretion is advised, and we're going to get straight into this case or haunting. And if you haven't already guessed by the title, this is the Amityville Horror, the true story. Yeah, see, you know it's already.
We are ready.
You ready?
I am.
Okay, let's get straight into it. So, 5 people were murdered at a Long Island residence in 1974, and tales and theories continue to this very day. 30 miles outside of New York, nestled in the Long Island town of Amityville, stands a house forever associated with these murders. On November the 13th, 1974, the estate was the scene of a mass murder using a 35 Marlin rifle. 23-year-old Ronald J. Defoe Jr. murdered his entire family while they slept, which included his parents and 4 siblings. Sounds like something you do on a day-to-day basis. Do you just wake up one day and think, yeah, I'm going to kill them?
Apparently he did. But we will go into that a little bit later on.
We will. So what we're now going to tell you is pretty much the backstory and then the hauntings that allegedly happened. So 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased a home at a drastically reduced price. All due to the murders. But only lasted 28 days before leaving it.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that they brought the house for $80,000. That is the lowest it's been. Bearing in mind the houses around it are probably valued at about $200,000 to $300,000.
Yeah.
Well, maybe more in some cases. Just down the road, there's $1 million house. And you think,
to me, I'm just thinking like, okay, they got that cheap.
Mm.
Very cheap.
Snap that bargain.
So there's tales of paranormal activity from the Lutz's side. Yeah. And I guess this is where the legend kind of starts.
Pretty much. Yeah, it basically starts with the Lutz family and just grows.
It does.
It grows exponentially.
But the thing is, I'm still in 2 minds about what actually happened at the Amityville house, and I'm pretty sure anyone that's ever seen the movie or ever read the book, you're bound to look at it.
I was very distracted by the film and the book.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I know what the film and
the
book
have portrayed. The film portrays it slightly differently.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess like before the actual hauntings that actually took place, we kind of need to delve into the murders a little bit deeper. So basically, Ronald Defoe, despite having a comfortable childhood in the Amityville, New York residence, I guess, Ronald clearly had some ongoing issues as he got older. He did dabble in drugs as well, as we later found out.
Yeah, he couldn't hold down a job.
Yep.
It was a general, very troubled teenager.
Yeah. I mean, saying that though, he had the wit, he had the charm, and he knew what he wanted, and he could get it. It just seemed like something was constantly holding him back all the time. Whether it was the mental part, the drug part, or vice versa.
Maybe it was just his luck. It was
probably something.
It was something along those lines.
He had a severe issue with his temper as well. And him and his father would often
argue, fight.
Literally punch the shit out of each other.
Literally come to blows.
Which I thought was quite interesting to read about someone else's family. I was like, wow, that family's fucked. That's fucked mentally.
It just seems that those 2 would argue though.
Yeah.
There's no mention that the rest of them would argue.
Probably not.
Right. But it's just those that I suppose maybe because it's senior and junior, maybe they they clashed. Maybe they just butted heads. Maybe they had the same sort of personality. Maybe
it was something.
It was something.
But I did find out he did go to the psychiatrist, but then he started to get worse.
Right.
So I did actually find out his family did take him to sort his temper and his issues out, and it still didn't quite settle himself down really. Neighbours constantly reported fights coming from this household.
Yeah.
It seemed to be
the
quite.
Police were called many times.
Yeah, it seemed to be like quite an ongoing thing. But by the time he was actually 17, he was an LSD and heroin user. So this all triggers off a lot of mental imbalances in anyone's head.
You can imagine psychosis. You can imagine a lot of mental issues.
Yeah.
Paranoia and God knows else what.
Yeah. So the night of the murder, his father attacked him and his sister, and there was a big argument before he decided to fuck it, I'm going to kill my whole family. And to me, that kind of might have just sparked maybe, I've had enough of this. Fuck it, I'm going to kill them. So him and his sister decided to come up with a plan. Whether it was a good plan or not, I can't seem to figure it out. I mean, what people
We're not here to judge.
What brother and sister sit in the same room and go, let's kill mum and dad? It seems like there was a lot of imbalances. And to me, I'm thinking like, so you planned it. It doesn't... I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe he was just fed up. But I can kind of see if you've taken so much shit from your family for so long, you would get fed up. Me personally...
Something's going to snap.
Yeah, me personally, I'd fucking leave.
Something's going to snap.
Would you shoot your family?
No, I'd probably be like yourself and just up and just leave.
Yep, I'm off.
Bye.
Pack a little rucksack and off we go. I mean, it's kind of how it would, really. But he did have a really good relationship with his sister. Like that, I suppose that was the only.
Quite close.
Yeah, that was the only member of his family that he was actually close to or close with. He also said after the killings, he had 30 plus statements. Each one of these statements said he was hearing voices inside the Amityville house. Now, to me, I'm thinking like, okay, you have statements and you have your little voices in your head. It doesn't quite.
No.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
It doesn't fit.
I mean, the other part that also stuck in my head was the fact that even though his sister allegedly helped him, she was the only one with gunpowder on her sleeves. He didn't have no gunpowder. So I'm like, okay.
No, he didn't have some gunshot residue.
Yeah, but she did. So I'm like, okay.
But he does say that he has a shower.
Yes, he did. But still, she had the gunpowder.
She had the gunshot residue.
She's part of it. That's the way I see it. You've got a bit of evidence on you, you're part of the crime. Yeah. And that's kind of how I kind of summed it up. So first of all, with this murder scene, all bodies were face down. And that's quite an odd thing to think about because most people don't sleep with their heads in the pillow.
No.
You're suffocating yourself, quite frankly. One way to go to bed early, I suppose. They were arranged that way. That is the only thing that I could come up with from the police report, is that they were arranged in that position.
Yeah, it was definitely staged.
Yeah.
Definitely staged from what the ones that I've read.
As I said to you, no one heard gunshots from this Marlin rifle. And that confuses the hell out of me.
And
if the neighbours can hear an argument taking place, they should hear fucking gunshots.
Yeah. But there are some statements that have said it happened at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And what I'm also going to say to you is other members of the family would have heard the gunshots.
Yeah. There's only... Unless they're all sleeping in the same room.
Which they weren't.
Which they weren't.
Which they weren't.
No. Then it would be quite hard.
But to me, I'm kind of thinking like one member of the family should have fucking woke up.
You would have thought.
I'm a heavy sleeper. I'm pretty sure.
To be fair, I'm a heavy sleeper, and like if a car backfires outside my window, mate, I'm up.
You're out the window like, shit, who's got killed?
What the hell's that?
It's England. Anyone could get killed. Oh no, wait, people get stabbed in England.
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah,
Go back to bed. Go back to bed. Go back to bed.
Sorry, we just get tasered.
I guess like this is a confusing part because today he's still sentenced. Am I not correct?
No, he is currently still serving his 7 consecutive life sentences.
And like I said to you and earlier, he still believes he heard voices telling him to kill his family. and he still writes down in statements, even to this day, that his sister had a part in doing so.
Whether she done it, whether she helped him, there are statements to say that she'd done it and he helped cover it up.
So to me, I'm thinking like, okay, mass murder, Amityville House, house is up for sale. Let's move the Lutz family in. Let's move them straight in. That'd be fine, you know. It's fine. So, like I said, 13 months, the Lutz family move in. All the furniture is still inside from the murder scene, which is a little bit odd. Because the police are meant to, you know, surround the area, take everything, analyse it, and yet all the furniture's still there.
And they're supposed to analyse what they deem to be a thing. Obviously, the downstairs furniture, technically, if it's got no blood residue on it.
If you went into a house and you knew it was a crime scene and people, like, say, quite a few people had been killed, would you still want that furniture?
I know. But then, people are weird.
A bit weird. I suppose if you're hard up on money and you're looking at the furniture, you're like, meh.
Well, you know, you've just like paid 80,000 for a cheap ass house.
Yeah.
Like, you'll take whatever's inside. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, take that. We can sell it later.
Yeah. Whether you update it,
take it to a boot fair,
or flea market, or
just leave it out the front.
Yeah.
Let a scrap man take it. With the blood residue.
With the blood residue on it, yeah.
So the Lutz family decided to move in, and they knew the history. It weren't like they were never told.
No.
So the family clearly wanted a new start, but they kind of got something else with this move. And whether their intentions were pure or not, they definitely were finding out that allegedly the house is a lot more to offer than the brilliant value that they seem to get it for. Yeah. So the father, George, does have a large history with the occult. Part of me thinks that he probably could have manifested these things.
It's not unheard of.
Or a part of me also thinks they're in his head. So the other part is he would wake up at 3:15 AM every morning, which was the time Ronald made the murders. Yeah. Coincidence?
Does it say how he woke up?
No, it just says he would wake up.
He would wake up.
Yeah, but he did know about the murders. It weren't like he was.
But it wouldn't necessarily. They wouldn't know
unless they read newspaper articles.
Yeah, but then you still wouldn't.
3:15, waking up every morning, and that was the time that the family were killed. I think he's clocking on to something. The family claimed to smell odours and also see green slime oozing from the walls.
Yes.
Now,
I'd just like to say,
go on.
The basically George's other half, Kathy.
Yeah.
Actually, it was the one that found
the green slime.
The green slime. It was in a hidden room that was painted red.
Just going to clarify, that could be mould. I haven't seen no green slime yet.
That's
why. They experience cold spots, as you would with any house. I'm not going to lie. I can walk to the bathroom and get cold. Doesn't mean a ghost's there. I know you're a fan believer.
I'm a believer, but I'm also aware of, you know, there's areas in a house that are drafty.
Okay. Where the vents are.
Where the vent.
Just clarify.
You could walk past a vent. You could walk past. Like the vent could be halfway down the walk, halfway down the hallway. Yeah. But you'll still get some sort of breeze or draft.
Yeah. May I also like to add, a priest entered this house, heard someone scream, "Get out." Warned the family, then said, "Please don't stay in a particular room." I have no idea what particular room it was.
I would assume it was the red room.
Probably the Uzi room. Don't go in there, you might break your leg, you might slip on something.
Yeah. But no, as you said, the priest went in there to cleanse the house.
Yeah. He heard the words.
Because they didn't want...
Can you imagine walking into a house and hearing the words like, "Get out"? I'd be like, no, not really.
Show yourself and then I will.
Too many shootings happened in this house already. Don't need any more. They experienced tons of flies. Now, I do have a theory on these flies.
I also have
but I'm also...
Maybe an explanation.
Okay. So, doors would open and close by themselves. Doesn't sound spooky at all. I can walk in the kitchen, my living room door opens up. If I don't close it properly, brings a draft right around the house. I don't sit there and think, shit, that's a ghost. A pig-like creature with red eyes was seen in the house in the bedroom window. Don't laugh. It was seen by the neighbours and the Lutz family at night time. It was a pig-like creature. Now, obviously, I'm just going over what they experienced, but there's so many fucking hilarious things that this could have been. But I think I kind of know what it is. But either way, George also stated he saw his wife levitating and his children. What is it with ghosts levitating shit? Can you imagine your child just floating by? Good day at school? Yep, cool. See you later.
Do your homework.
Stop levitating around the house.
Close that door.
And that one. Just doesn't make sense. Why? Apparently, George's wife looked into a mirror and saw an old lady and...
Did she say Bloody Mary 3 times? Turn around.
No, she looked in the mirror, saw an old lady, and she said it looked like her but an older version.
Well, she must have been tired. She's been working all the time, floating around the house.
No makeup on. That's what it does to women. I mean, to be honest, it sounds like his house is on drugs.
Sounds like a family's on drugs. That's in the house. He's probably pissed.
I reckon they moved in and thought, fuck it, we'll just say whatever happens, happens.
Or is a gas leak?
Yeah, they're high off gas.
They're getting high off of fumes, mate. They're drafty house. Like, doors are opening and closing.
Just breathing it in. Shame the gas masks. They should have invested. So the story hit the news and became like a very popular among the horror story community. But the mental state is quite crazy. How it went from a little door closing to so much happening all at once. And it does kind of make me think that, okay, maybe the house might have been a little smidgen bit of haunted. Like a little oozy smidge of hauntedness. But then the other part of me is like, no. But keep this in mind, they did stay there a while. Do you know how many days they actually stayed there for? It was 28 days.
Yeah, I put down 3 weeks, but...
Yeah, they roughly stayed there for 28 days. And to me, I'm thinking like, okay, your house is haunted as fuck, and you still stayed there for 28 days. Or even 3 weeks. If it's this haunted, why the fuck are you there?
In some parts...
You did try and think up a really good excuse of why you would stay.
Well,
After you've seen your children and wife levitating around the room.
Okay, that would be like the pinnacle of
That's the pinnacle. That's the top.
Something's going on in this house. Let's go. Like it's.
Yep.
I wouldn't go. Oh no, actually, just give it a couple of weeks. It might settle down a bit.
That still makes sense, does it?
No,
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, also bear in mind, after the Lutz family moved in, evidence from those who, after they moved out, sorry, evidence was investigated by the Warrens. As we all know, their paranormal activity is great. They took pictures and they saw a ghost of a young boy who looked like the 9-year-old of the Defoe family. This is after the family's moved out, so paranormal investigators moved in, they've looked around and gone, yeah, this is great. It's full of paranormal activity.
Yeah, they saw the image, or i.e. shadow, of John Matthew, the youngest of the Defoe family. You
can look this up on Google, and to me it looks fake. But it's entirely up to you what you think about it. I'm not going to pass judgment. You know, we've got a ghost lover here, and
see, I'm a firm believer in ghosts and paranormal activity.
But I'll leave it as well. Go on. You don't believe his story at all, do you?
What they've explained is the classic case of. It's the most basic of paranormal activity.
Apart from the levitating family.
No, you've had items that levitate.
Yeah, but not a whole family.
Well, no, but
imagine you sat there eating your dinner and everyone starts levitating, but you.
You just sit down, eat your dinner before you start levitating.
Told you once.
Yeah, stop it.
Doesn't matter.
Why I'm not doing it.
So after they moved out, they literally claimed the house was haunted by obviously the former members, the Defoe family. They claimed that a lot was going on. Mentally, they couldn't handle it. And like I said, it seems like this house is on fucking drugs. It seems like doors were opening, windows opened.
Yeah, then they got good old Ed and Lorraine Warren in. They just confirmed it.
Of course they would.
Of course they would. They want money. They want publicity out of it. And then the best thing about it, as we both agree, they've taken a lie detector test, which we both know.
Right. So yeah, they did take this lie detector test. Now, obviously, back then it wasn't accurate. It wasn't that good.
No.
Right? But if you believe something is happening, like, you are bound to pass the lie detector test because you, in yourself, believe it's the truth of what you've seen. So you're going to pass.
So you'd remain calm.
Yeah.
There'll be no hesitation in what your answers.
Exactly.
And you'll be like, yeah, that happened. Yeah. Yes, this happened. I've definitely heard that. I've definitely seen that.
Not being funny, doors can open up in a house anywhere. If you see a door open up in your own house, you're like, okay, I saw that. If you took a lie detector test, you saw it, it happened. It can happen.
And then add someone saying, when that door opened, do you believe that it's paranormal activity? Yeah. And in your head, you're going, it must be.
Yeah, it must be. I can't explain it. My thoughts on this is maybe they were that invested and they knew that obviously the killings happened, that they started to believe their own mindset. Now that is some part of a little bit of hysteria. You're going to convince your wife that something's happening, or you're going to tell her. She's going to see something happen, she's going to start believing it, and then your whole family's going to start to believe it. Now bearing in mind they were accused of lying and saying that the events were made up and fictional. And getting some paranormal...
There was quite a bit of an investigation into it.
And getting some paranormal investigators in, it adds to the whole story.
It backs up the whole story.
So apparently the lawyer of the Lutz family, who told them that they could get this house or they could make some form of money, they all came up with the idea, and he states they came up with the idea over a few bottles of wine. Now to me, it kind of seems like maybe they did. Maybe the Amityville house isn't haunted. Maybe it is just all in their head of what they have seen. Or maybe there is a deeper connection here. Maybe there is actually, I hate to say it, I hate to give you this little bit of a boost, but maybe due to the tragic events, and I am a weird believer in some things, but maybe the fact that their souls are unrested, that this did happen as soon as the Lutz family moved in. Maybe there is this small little sprinkle of ghostly apparition that it is actually happening. And to me, I'm thinking like, okay, it could. But then the other part of me, like, it's just this little crossover bit I can't get over. To me, I'm like, they're lying. But obviously, your thoughts so far before we get into the theories of what we think and how we actually think this may have played out?
There's aspects of it that I'm just like, it's too basic.
And bearing in mind, loads of horror films have come out at this point.
Yeah.
And like, they probably...
I tried to look at this case. Yeah. And get, as I said, get the film, get the book out of my head. Yeah. And look at it from a point of view of, could it be haunted? Yeah. So, as I said, I've had stuff happen in the past that I'm a believer of.
Is it weird that I'm more likely to believe you than this story?
It's a little bit, because most of what I've seen, they've documented.
Yeah, but this story just sounds so fake.
It's the way that, obviously, it's the way of them starting it. Like, they've moved into a very cheap house, surrounded by houses that are about 10 times more expensive. And
I see where you're coming from. They've got a cheap house.
They need something.
And a part of me thinks they got it that cheap.
How can it's got a backstory.
Yeah. It's got a backstory. I mean, how many viewers right now have probably lived in a house where someone's been killed in? I mean, it's quite slim, but most people live in new builds.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, in this time frame, in this, like,
we don't always know the history of our own houses.
No.
Like, unless you, as you
but
said,
they
unless you're
mentally they've realised, okay, we can get this house cheap. And then because maybe they couldn't afford the upkeep, or maybe they saw it as just a big money maker. I mean, I would like to say though that their son, the Defoe family's son, is it? No, the Lutz family's son.
Lutz family's son.
Their son Daniel is a firm believer in what happened, and he has avoided public talking, experiencing his own thoughts and stuff and explaining what has actually happened. But when he was actually asked, he said, look, I have seen what I have seen, and he's still traumatized to this day. So to me, I'm thinking like, okay, he's a child. Could this not be funny if a door opened up and you told your son or daughter a ghost is doing that?
They're gonna believe.
They're gonna believe.
They're gonna
believe.
They're very impressionistic.
Have you got anything to add to the Amityville House?
I would just like to say
actually happened.
So I'd just like to. So obviously, the Lutz family brought it for 80,000.
Yes.
Very, very low.
Yes.
Lowest within the region, I would assume. For a house that size.
Yeah, it's a big house. Yeah. It's a very big house.
So in the property was valued in 2010, which I think is about 15 or so years later.
We'll wing it.
Like from...
We'll go over it. Yeah.
I think I roughly didn't work that one out.
Yeah.
So it was valued in 2010 at $50,000 less than $1 million. So $950,000.
Okay.
And that was, 10 years ago.
Yep.
It was purchased by Caroline and David D'Antonio.
Okay.
But was put up for sale shortly after. The reason for that is because all of these stories, obviously the movie's out by then.
The book is out.
The book is out by then.
The whole horror story has been broadcasted wide.
People were turning up, knocking on the door, can I come in, can I see the house, blah 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 blah. Or they're walking past
and taking a shit
and
ton
taking
of pictures
and they've I think some of the occupants that have moved in after Caroline and David, they had children. They didn't they didn't want to put their children through that aspect. Someone turning up, knocking on the door, taking pictures that you don't know what people are taking pictures of. I'm not being.
I mean, people could take a picture and see someone getting out of the bath, or walking. Like if they got small children, might be running around naked, and they take that picture and
Hey ho. As I said, it was purchased by Caroline and David.
Yeah.
But again, it was put up for sale.
Yeah. Due
to the untimely death of David. Now, this is not linked to the Amityville.
Okay.
He was in good condition as a person, but he contracted, I think it was cough or something, and it just deteriorated his body. It deteriorated very quickly.
It had nothing to do with alleged hauntings that happened in this house.
No, it was nothing to do with the house. It was just his lineage, I suppose.
Yeah.
I assume. I'm not sure. And it was sold for 605,000. So it's 300,000 less. Purely because no one really wanted to move in because of the backstory.
I would just like to say, the Lutz family have made millions from selling their story for a movie, the books, even going on interviews.
TV shows, documentaries.
The only thing that stands out in my mind before we get into the theories is just simply the fact that after so many days they stayed there, they left all their belongings there and up to one night, and that was it. They were just gone.
To California.
And for a family, even a single person, to leave your belongings, something would have spooked you. Or are you now doing this because you now know you're going to make a shit ton of money because of what you've just made? Like, fuck it, we can get a new sofa, we're going to make millions, or fuck it, we don't need this shit, we can make more.
We can get new.
But still, for a family to believe their own haunting and for everything else to go along, to me, I'm kind of like, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be discussed in our theories. So let's get into it. We're the Unsettled. Let's see if you agree with our theories.
So my theory is that I've heard stuff in the past that so people can manifest things in their mind, and it plays out. They can imagine things happening. When then something does happen due to a draft or some sort of act, like a cat pushing a door, or, as I said, the draft coming down the hallway and shutting the door. Do I believe this? Getting the movie out of my head, getting the book out of my head. Some parts of this are too coincidental. Other parts I can believe. The trauma that the loved family child is suffering could be down to the parents. To myself, I don't believe. There's too many things that are wrong with this whole case. Now, whether it's the police that are in the wrong, whether it's just bigging up the house price, to put your children through that, not for me.
So I've got a range of theories, and I think I'll start off with possibly the most obvious one, and that is basically that they faked the whole situation. A lot of things don't add up, and a lot of things don't seem to make sense. Maybe they did this for the money, the story, or maybe themselves, like they just needed that financial gain. But either way, it doesn't make sense for a house to be haunted back then but not haunted now. And that doesn't sit well with me, and because I'm not a firm believer of ghosts, it would never sit well with me. Basically, I did a bit more research into this, and I came across that, you know, it was discussed, there was a plan with their lawyer, and to me I'm thinking like, okay, so they discussed to fake the hauntings. Makes perfect sense if you're in it for like financial gain. To me that doesn't really sit well. So basically, when these paranormal investigators went into this house, they found that they trod on a floorboard and a window would open up. And whether it was rigged or set up that way, it kind of reminded me a bit like Home Alone. You know, to me, they could have trod on that floorboard, a window goes up, they think it's a haunting. Whether they subconsciously thought it was a haunting or not is a different matter, but there was that part to it. The reason why the flies were actually in the house is because there was no windows and no doors opened apart from when the family moved in. So, of course, there's dead bodies in that house. There's bound to be flies, there's bound to be like maggots somewhere. So there's got to be a lot of flies. Obviously the green goo, I could not explain. I don't think anyone ever could, other than the fact that maybe the wife was possibly washing the walls. Washing up liquid comes to my mind. And also, as I mentioned in the previous part, the whole part of the red eyes and the pig-like creature, turned out it was the house cat. It had a little quirk of standing on its back legs in the front window and looking like a meerkat. So, yet again, it all kind of debunks itself as you progress through it, basically. So basically, that is my thought on whether they faked it. Now, whether it was real, Ronald Dafoe said the house was already haunted. He kept hearing voices, whether this was due to his drug overdose, his own mental state, who knows. I also found out that there is an actual Indian burial ground across this land. Maybe, it's a very slim possibility that it was actually haunted. As for the photos that the investigator took and whether it was that little boy, it could have been. But to me, also, if I go with the haunting theory, it doesn't make sense to me at all. But the last bit was the fact that maybe, and I think this is the more plausible aspect because the family still believe it to this day, and the child did obviously suffer some type of mental problem and was traumatised by the events, is the fact that when one person believes something and there's evidence, say like the window going up, that you can convince other people that your house is haunted. So maybe, I think this is the strongest theory that you're ever going to get from me of a haunting, that obviously George and his wife managed to convince each other that the house was haunted and they suffered some sort of paranoia. And that's probably the best you're ever going to get from me on whether this was actually haunted or not. But to me it seems like they saw something happen, be it the door open up, the window open up or anything else, and they started to believe their own thoughts. And because the murders happened in this house, and because it has a backstory, they might have just actually thought it was haunted, and they suffered their own type of paranoia, convincing each other on a daily basis. So what conclusion? What's the theory? What now seems more plausible? Is the Amityville House allegedly still haunted? Considering loads of people have moved in there since and they haven't experienced any paranormal. Just this one family. What makes it still to this day the most, haunted house?
I've heard of things attaching themselves.
Okay.
So maybe when the boy did leave, the spirit went with him.
Maybe.
And he's basically now cursed from
even today, George and everyone else still believe that the house is haunted.
But then, going from reading from a story, it's just too mainstream, too coincidental, too.
It's something you'd see in the cinemas.
It's just too easy to explain.
Even if you take away the fact they made a movie of it. So to me, I'm thinking no. To me, I'm thinking they believe their own paranoia. They knew the murders, and that is what led them.
They manifested their own story.
Yeah. They saw what was happening around the house, whether they walked on floorboards, whether the doors opened up by themselves.
Maybe they didn't know about all of the catches.
Maybe.
I'm not going to say that they did.
But what I mentioned in my theories, the flies. The doors weren't opened up, the windows weren't opened up until they moved in.
And you think all
You've
of
got a dead body
bodily
there.
fluids and God knows else what have seeped through the floor.
As I said, the furniture was still in there. Everything was still as it was.
Exactly.
So are we in agreement?
I think we are.
They created their own paranoia, they created their own...
Yeah. Whether they knew that stuff was in there already and they sort of like confused themselves and tricked themselves into believing it. Or they didn't, but whenever they did experience like stepping on the floorboard, as you rightly said, whether that then tricked off a psychosis or a paranoia.
They just convinced themselves constantly.
Yeah.
And as a child, bearing in mind his name is Daniel, he would have been quite young. He would have seen his own mother and father experience the ghostly happenings that they were now thinking in their head.
And he would then cotton on. Maybe he went up and stepped on that certain floorboard and
saw something. Yeah. I mean, the one thing is that I'm always going to take away from any type of ghostly experience. If a ghost sits there and talks to me, I'm going to believe it. They never saw a ghost. Bearing in mind, they never saw a ghost.
It was only the
paranormal on the camera.
On a camera.
No one else saw a ghost. It was all allegedly doors open up, windows, floorboards, flies. You get the gist. Yeah. But either way, I think we're in the same type of route.
I think we are in the same mindset on this.
Finally, we fucking agree. We finally agree. So the Amityville House. I guess this is the truth. A whole family deluded in paranoia. that their house is haunted because they moved into a murder scene.
It's not always the best choice to.
Bearing in mind they have lived very comfortably after all this shit.
Oh yeah.
Very comfortably.
Oh yeah.
But even today, they're still believing their own lies.
And their son is in a very
traumatized state.
A traumatized state, but he's being very well cared for by very expensive doctors.
Yeah. We agree.
We do.
This has been The Unsettled. This is season 2. It only gets worse from here out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
Press that notification bell so you can see more gruesome and horrific stuff to come.
I would like to say it gets a million times worse from this point on.